Oh, brilliant. Well, it's great to speak to you.
Emily. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for asking. Lots in the papers about your new NHS pledges. You're promising 40,000 odd new appointments every week for patients in the NHS. How is that going to be funded?
£1.1 billion paid for by clamping down on tax avoidance and also closing non-dom loopholes as well, and that will enable us to put £1.1 billion directly into the pockets of NHS staff to deliver those extra appointments at evenings and weekends using an approach that's been tried and tested at the London hospital I can literally see out of my office window in Westminster, and therefore an approach we need to see available to patients right across the country, not just in London. And that does come with a cost, and that's why we've made this commitment as our first step on the journey to busting the Tory backlog and cutting NHS waiting lists.
Yeah, I mean, Wes, it sounds great that you can pay for this all by cracking down on tax avoidance and non-doms. But this non-dom, the money that you believe you're going to be able to recuperate from that, it seems to be all based on one study by Warwick and the LSE University that you'll be able to raise X billion. But I just wonder, have you thought about perhaps how mobile these non-doms may be, and they may choose to park themselves in another country? How many non-doms do you expect there be to tax under a Labour government?
Well, we've been around this block before because the Conservatives attacked this policy originally and said exactly the same thing. Look, non-doms are going to flee the country, it's not going to raise the money you think it will, we can't go ahead by abolishing the non-dom tax status. And then what has Jeremy Hunt done in his last budget? He's scrapped the non-dom tax status in the way that Labour planned to, albeit leaving some convenient loopholes open for the Conservative Party's friends.
You may not have seen, Wes, but there's actually reports out today that Jeremy Hunt is maybe reconsidering this on non-doms because he's been speaking to business leaders and the like, and they're worried that actually what we might see is those wealthy non-doms moving.
Tory party donors, his next door neighbour.
Well, it's important. I want the facts. I want to know. I want to know whether scrapping non-dom status and these loopholes that you say you're going to clamp down on are actually going to raise enough money for 44,000 appointments a week, because that is a huge pledge and it's something that people will be crying out for and very happy for you to say. But is the reality that you'll have to raise taxes across the board?
No, in fact, that's the approach the Conservatives have taken, which is why we've got this enormous tax burden that's hitting people on lower middle incomes. That's not going to be Labour's approach. And when you look at how we're paying for our policies, what we are doing is raising money in a fairer way than the Conservatives, because we know that the tax burden on working people is too high. We're not going to pick the pockets of working people in the way that the Tories have, but where we do need to raise money for good Labour policies, it's going after people who've got broader shoulders and who aren't paying their fair share, and that will be Labour's approach if we win the next general election.
Yeah, I just worry that there isn't that strong enough evidence to suggest that you're going to raise enough to be able to pay for these 44,000 new appointments. But also, on these NHS scanners, now there's a little bit of confusion. I hope you can put us right on this. So you say you're going to double the number of NHS scanners. Fantastic, that's great. You say it's going to cost about £171 million a year. Now, the Treasury estimates currently say that it would cost £1 billion a year. So which one is it? Can you clear that up for us?
Yeah, just to be clear, Jeremy Hunt spent an entire day of his life in government the other day coming up with totally bogus figures to attack the Labour Party. And as a former permanent secretary of the Treasury, Nick Macpherson, an independent member of the House of Lords, said just the other day, you put rubbish in, which is what the Conservative special advisors did with their assumptions, and you get rubbish out, which are these totally bogus figures. So
it's 171. Where does that figure come from? 171 million?
Yes. AI-enabled scanners that will mean that we can get those waiting lists down faster. And we don't rely on Conservative special advisors for our costings. We consult think tanks, we consult experts so that our figures are robust, and that's how we get to policies that are fully costed and fully funded. And I think it's been an appalling spectacle this week, actually, that given how little time these guys have got left before the general election, we had Esther McVeigh spending an entire day talking about rainbow lanyards and a few government offices, an entire day of the Chancellor of the Exchequer talking about Labour's costings, why don't they pull their finger out and do their job instead of, carping at the opposition? It feels to me like we're taking the job of being ready for government very seriously. They're preparing for opposition.
Wes, you're guilty of throwing mud just as much as the Conservatives are. I mean, last time we spoke, it was about that tweet. It was about that tweet to Susan Hall supporters, wasn't it, Wes? Saying that a vote for Susan Hall at the Labour mayoral elections was a vote for, racists and Islamophobes and all of this. That was potentially tarnishing millions of voters in London who were just fed up of Sadiq Khan's record on some things.
No,
that's
absolutely
student union politics, isn't it, really?
Sadiq's big enough. Sadiq's big enough and ugly enough to take criticism. If people don't like him or don't like his policies, we'll disagree on that, but that's totally legit in a democracy. What Sadiq has faced, I think, is an unprecedented barrage of racism and prejudice as the Mayor of London. That's what I was calling out. And I don't think Susan Hall is racist. I don't think she's a white supremacist. I don't think she's an Islamophobe. But
just
when her opponent has faced all of those things, I think she's been silent to the point. I think she's been silent to the point of complicity.
Whereas that tweet was a mistake.
Party's got a problem.
That tweet was a mistake. That tweet was a mistake, wasn't it?
No, look. People disagree with it. Look, I stand by it. Was by no means attacking Conservative voters. I spend a lot of time trying to appeal to Conservative voters to back Labour at the general election. But what I do stand very strongly against is that kind of bile and prejudice being directed against Sadiq for no other reason than he's a Muslim. We didn't, when Boris Johnson was mayor, when Ken Livingstone was mayor, they didn't have the degree of security and police protection that Sadiq has to keep him and his family safe and alive. That's the kind of threat he's up against.
Yeah, I just worry that you offended potentially millions of people.
Some of that out.
You potentially offended millions of people by just throwing around Islamophobe, white supremacist, racist and the like. But there you go. Just to finish, you've said the BMA in the past, the union, the medical union, have been a bit hostile to some of the things you've said about NHS reform, the use of private facilities and the like. How worried are you about telling NHS staff that they need to work evenings and weekends and things? Do you think you're going to have a battle on your hands there?
No, I don't actually, because we're taking an approach that's been tried and tested in a small number of hospitals in big cities, and we want to work everywhere. This would be entirely up to staff whether they join in or not, but all of the evidence we've seen so far suggests there will be people able and willing to put in a bit of extra time and being paid fairly for it at evenings and weekends to cut NHS waiting lists.
Contracts.
So I don't think this is going to be a battle at all.
So no,
not at all.
Contracts.
This will be up to staff.
Okay.
No, we will not be forcing staff to do it. It'll be, and I think staff will opt to do it.